Hi, and welcome to my presentation on note-taking and academic success. This is by me, Wyatt Barnes. Why take notes? There are a number of reasons why taking notes is beneficial to you academically. First of all, better retention of lecture classes. Science has shown us that those who write down information during class is much more likely to retain that information. Another reason to take notes would be having a point of focus that keeps you from daydreaming or wandering mentally. And then it's also important because it creates a reliable study guide for the future. It also helps transfer information from short-term memory to long-term memory, especially once you take advantage of reviewing those notes later on. A really important part of note-taking is to make sure that you are actively listening to a lecture. This means that you're having your full attention focused on the professor, you're maintaining eye contact, you look for keywords and main ideas within topics. You also read the professor's body language. This can be a really important and good one to pay attention to. You can also try to predict where the lecture will go next, which is a little trick that can keep you focused and zoned in. Next, identifying main ideas. Looking for verbal cues such as this is important or remember is really important. And when you're able to identify or kind of identify when those times when your professor brings those phrases up, those are key terms that you can put down in your notebook and you can mark them as such. Oftentimes, professors will also write down key phrases or main ideas or really important details on the whiteboard behind them. Making sure that you have those written down in your notes can be very helpful. Also, pay attention to hand gestures and voice fluctuations from the professor, which can give an indication of how important a certain detail might be to them. Last of all, just as a friendly reminder, make sure that whatever is highlighted in class, you have highlighted in your notes. You might think, oh, I'll definitely remember that this was important. But a couple weeks later, when you have midterms coming up and you have other classes that you have to take notes for, it's really hard to remember everything if it's not written down. So make sure that you have the important things down first. All right, now let's get on to how we format our notes. We have a couple of different ways that we can format. I'm going to give you 5 really good ways that you can format your notes. The first way is my favorite. It's the Cornell method. This is a really great way to format your notes because you have space for main ideas and questions on the left-hand side of the page, and you also have an easy way to self-quiz later down the road. It offers a space for a quick summary of the lecture down at the bottom. Onto the mind map. Mind map is great because it gives a clear visual on headings and subheadings, and it organizes ideas into increasingly specific topics and kind of gives you a visual flow to see how things are connected. Our next format is outlines. Outlines are a good use because they have kind of a hierarchy of ideas and their subtopics and then the details below that. And they're really kind of the default that I often go to when I'm not taking Cornell notes. Next, we have our matrix method. So this is a really good way to compare and contrast different information in multiple columns all alongside each other. And so it's really good to kind of see similarities between different topics or ideas. Lastly, for format, we have our sentence method. This is usually what I would say. I use this one just as a last resort because it's really good for jotting down information very quickly because you just number each sentence that you have, and each sentence is a different subtopic, so to speak, of a lecture. And this is best used when speed is the highest priority. If you have a very fast professor who's moving through content really fast, this is a good way to be able to keep up with it while still maintaining some amount of record keeping. Let's go back to the Cornell method and how we can use the Cornell method as a review. I like to call it the ultimate review strategy. Cornell notes provide a way for you to write down test questions on the left column of the page with answers written on the right side. As I said before, you can use this later down the road when you have exams coming up, where you can go back to your notes that you've previously taken. You can cover up that right side that has the answers written on them, and then read those questions on the left-hand side aloud, and then recite the answers to yourself out loud. If you're able to do this, then great. You're in a great spot. It means you've retained a lot of that information. If you find yourself struggling a bit, that means that you have some work to do and you know exactly what topic that you need to work on because you've written that topic down on the left-hand side. This can be repeated as many times as would be necessary in order to really get that information solid. Last but not least, this style of review can help you overcome the forgetting curve, which is a really important thing that not enough students pay attention to. The more you review, the less you will forget. And that's kind of the key to learn from that. All right, well, speaking of review, how do you review notes? Well, the first review should be done as soon as possible. If possible, it should be done right after class. And what do you do in your first review? You go back to your notes and you look over them. You make sure that there's no gaps in information, that it all makes sense. Oftentimes, you'll have to go back and fill in holes where you had to skip over a section because you might have missed something that the teacher said, or maybe the professor himself or herself skipped over some part of the lecture without meaning to. But it's really important to have that first review because once you do have that first review, filling in those notes will really help keep that in the long-term memory. Your second review should be done a couple of days after lecture. Typically, the sooner the better. If you can do it the next day, then that is best. But basically, you'll want to go back and look over your written questions and self-quiz yourself, as I talked about in the Cornell method, as much as possible. Review number 3 should be sooner rather than later as well. If not sooner, then the next week would be best. You basically just do everything you did in the second review where you self-quizzed yourself and recited everything from memory and do it again and again until you get it correct. I have this link down here that kind of goes over a video that takes you through how to review and why review is important. Next on the list, we have note-taking analysis. So this is really important because as you go through your notes, you want to make sure that you can understand what they mean. Ask yourself these questions when you're going through your notes. Did I miss any major topics or main ideas? Are my notes neat and legible? Are my notes accurate and match the textbook? Was my method of note-taking effective for this lecture? If you can answer all of these questions and you feel satisfied with what you've done with your notes, then you're in a really good spot and you have built yourself a really great tool to be able to review and recite information from the class. So, in conclusion, our summary. Note taking can be a very powerful tool for all students. And good notes means you have methods that you follow and you stick to that are most effective when you review them consistently. Consistent review is probably the biggest reason why A students get good grades. My challenge to everyone is to use one of the 5 note-taking methods that I listed in this presentation and take it to your next class and try this cycle of note-taking, review, and review again. I guarantee that you will find you'll be able to retain information better from class and you'll be happier for it. Thank you for watching and hope you have a good rest of your day.